since it's already November 8th, that you are fully, seatbelt buckled and fastened and aware of all of the potential exits and escape hatches around you, because upon meditating and clearing my mind and allowing myself to jot down some notable notes about what is in store for you in this Scorpio season energy, I picked up on some interesting energies. And I realized that for most of you Cancerians, this it's not just November, not just Scorpio season. It's probably going to be a bit of a ride for you. And this is whether you've been doing a lot of healing work and you can take this all with a lot of humor and humility. And for those of you who have been hiding in your crusty old crab shells, trying to avoid feeling the feely feels. And for those of you that have been trying to avoid feeling the feely feels, I mean, you've actually been supported in doing such a thing by where the planets have been. Though, much like from the movie The Dark Crystal, when Agra is talking about the planets are aligning, I might have chosen the wrong voice, the wrong voice for that one, but whatever. Um, when she's talking about the planets are aligning in just such a way that the shard from the crystal can be placed into it, and the Skeksis can be defeated. And one of the things I love about that movie too is like they base it on the notion that the Skeksis are bad and horrible and they're going to be defeated. And then at the end of the movie, when the crystal is aligned, it's actually I can't remember what they're called, but it's the guys that remind me of Littlefoot from Land Before Time. Like they're like got six arms and stuff, and they're like all grandfathers. In any case, they come in and they actually merge with the Skeksis and then become these like crystal beings. And what I love about that Cancer, what I love about that is often what happens with y'all. It happens with everyone, but especially seems to happen with y'all. You get this point where you will almost split yourself in two. Kind of like Geminis will do sometimes, even sometimes Libras and Aquarians. Don't mind the neighbor dog. He likes to bark at every single delivery person and yard maintenance person and stuff. It's kind of nice. At least we always know when someone's coming into the neighborhood, though. If it bugs you, try to tune it out. It's Spirit's way of saying allow distractions to exist in the world and find a way to be grateful for them, because it's only going to make you miserable if you decide not to be. Anyways, so yes, like I was saying, like the Dark Crystal is really it's a very Cancerian type movie in terms of like the emotional evolution that y'all will go through, and often multiple times in your lives, even after you feel like you're like, I've already done this. No, it's part of your life path, especially if you have Cancer Sun Moon arising. And on top of that, it's like to me the Skeksis, like if you look at them, they're almost a literal Cancerian embodiment. Like their accoutrements, their outfits are shells. Like remember when the one oh, I can't remember his name. It wasn't Chauncey. I don't know. He was the one that like, yes, yes, I will take over. Yes, like I can't remember his name, but like when they like shame him in front of everyone, they do it by stripping away his clothes. And if you look at it, it's a shell. Like they want to, well, they're weird like that. They wear shells, but what's not weird to what creatures that are not weird to wear a shell are crabs, right? And then on top of that, it's funny because like the Skeksis were the embodiment of our like shadow selves, or the parts of ourselves that like always feel ugly and like victims and like you gotta fight and do all this other stuff and like it's constantly like I mean, it's like the unevolved energy of Cancer. It's like materialism and hoarding and mine, 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 and like it's ruler of the fourth house. So we see a lot of moon stuff, which is a lot of indecisiveness, changeableness, deception, things like that. The moon card is actually very much related to Cancer, and we see this kind of like oh, what do you call it? It's the unevolved aspects of mother, right? And insecure, needy, like backhanded compliments and things like that, but it's usually the voice from within, and then then we'll manifest people around us who then echo that voice within, and then then before you know it, you're like in a room full of other Skeksis, right? And then you're like, well, either I might as well join like them, but then usually life has a way of providing some sort of little rebel somewhere, some sort of rat fink or gremlin or kind of like, I want to say like chaotic neutral kind of being, and then it'll provide other beings that are like chaotic good or protagonists and stuff who come in and out of your life. And it's funny. I've been trying to avoid the term like break generational curses or break out of loops. So it's more like restore the natural order, like beings that restore balance, right? And so, some of them are neutral tricksters. Some of them come in and they're not. They are the bad guys, and those bad guys will do a real good job making the good guys look like the bad guys, and then the good guys sometimes will be the bad guy in order to be the good guy, and it just like it's its own thing. Like, there's a reason that movies and books have these kinds of themes about them because they genuinely do actually happen in real life. It's just we're often living day to day, and so, or paycheck to paycheck, so we might not see the whole wider divine comedy of how our lives tend to actually be quite a lot like the movies that we like and watch. There's less symbolism, you know what I mean? Like, you can look at the end of the Dark Crystal and be like, oh yeah, I can totally see now how like that was the embodiment of being in a shadow space trying to like maintain what feels like the rewards of survival and eternal life and blah blah blah, and the way that the Skeksis did, like, I want fancy accoutrements and luxuries, and let's just suck the life out of people, out of every other being, so that we can live just a little bit longer with fewer wrinkles and more comfort, and like, you know what I mean? And then suddenly, through the arduous journey, through the choice of a few determined to do good, or at least to bring balance. I love Augur because she's like, not she's neither good nor bad really. She's rather self-serving, but she goes for balance. She's embodiment of very much of a gray witch. Very in the middle. As selfish as she is selfish, or selfless. But then at the end we see that joining. Like, it wasn't the defeating of the Skeksis that were needed. Like, in fact, if you killed off a Skeksis, you killed off one of the Longfoot, Bigfoot looking characters on the other side, and then you had fewer of them. The way to defeat them, it was to transform them, which we see in Phoenix moments, we see in the Death card, we see in the World card at the end, like that allowing of that transformation. And effectively, it could be like having the Death card and then moving that energy into the World card, because it's like the Death card is that ego death, so like the Skeksis were in that place of like, I don't know, imagine at the end when they're kind of, the crystals got their eyes locked into it, like just before then, like they were panicking, right? Like, our shadows will do that, our egos will do that. They will be in a place where it's like, ah, crap, and you might even get kind of a shadow storm, which is effectively, what happened when the Gelflings were in the castle and doing stuff like that. You got to release the beetles and do this and do that, and like everybody's running all over the place, and like, where I love that, like, they're calling in the animals and things like that, and like some people are sacrificing and others are not, and like it's like chaos. But it's also, I mean, think of like Pirates of the Caribbean too. Like, Captain Jack Sparrow was really good about creating interesting sorts of chaos that then he just put himself in the proper timing to be where he wanted to be. So there are times that, like, that sort of thing can help turn the tables towards more benevolent light, so that you have more balance in it. Because, as it shows, when the old dudes and the Skeksis join, you don't want to defeat everything. You don't want to be greedy with everything. You want to join your higher self with your shadow self, your light self with your shadow self. And that when you come into union with the two, you actually, not only do you end up stronger because of it, which totally, gets rid of the fear of vulnerability or things like that, but you stand radiant, you stand in light, and you can actually help the people that you want to help. You can actually speak the things that you want to speak to people around you, and not fear that you're like forever going to have to hide in your crab shell, or like, constantly have your pinchers out because somebody might say something that touches a wound that you haven't wanted to face, which it feels like is why, aptly fitting into Scorpio season, it's likely that you're going to find yourself going through some trials and tribulations on your way to reintegration into kind of new earth energy, new reality energy. And there's been some interesting syncs that have been coming up. The first one, well, first what I want to say is you're kind of in an interesting position, Cancer. There won't be, as far as I've looked, there won't be any planets or asteroids in the sign of Cancer at all through the remainder of November, except a few times the moon, just because the moon changes signs so often. And so, like and I'm laughing because this relates to my own life, but the moon currently is doing something that astrologers call being out of bounds. And so it's like it goes between being far closer to Earth than it normally would be, and far further away than it normally would be. And I'm not going to go into detail about how it gets like that because it's a rabbit hole. It's a cabot hole, a cabot trail of its own. Um, but let's just say that, like, if you think about that metaphorically, like your ruling planet is out of bounds, right? It's either too close or too far away. You might have noticed that your life has kind of been doing this sort of thing, maybe for the last few years, or maybe even up to the last like 10 years. Well, not 10 years, like 8 years ish, 7 or 8 years. And it will probably continue to do this, I think, for another year or so. It doesn't mean it's going to be, the chaos that it may have been, or the carnival or circusry that it's been, though. Just be aware that that energy is there. Maybe look into it because, I have an incredibly huge brain and beautifully long memory, but I do not know all things and I do not remember all facts, least of all with ADHD. So you can look into it and see. I can't remember what side of it is on, but oftentimes it'll happen it can vary between like for 4 years at a time or 10 years at a time. And sometimes it happens like every other 10 years, and other times it'll happen like it'll be 20 years and then a 10 years. Like it's weird. The our relationship with the moon is weird, and this is your ruler, Cancer. So like, don't feel like one, you're not being picked on if that's been a life theme for you, and two, no, you're not crazy, and you're not just like this weirdly over emotional being. There have been various different factors going on throughout the universe that you are also engaging with, and some of them, there's been plenty of times that you have leaned into your shadow side when certain energies were leaning into the out of boundsness, that you have things that you do need to own. That is very true. Though don't like get into a place of losing all grace for yourself. Everybody's been going through shit. Everybody's been being somewhat of a pirate and a potato and things like that. So like, I don't know, love yourself through this. No matter how far you've been, no matter how far into Dark Night of Soul you may have gone, no matter how messy life might be, it gets better, especially when you start manifesting it better by starting in your own mind, right? And with self-love, because that's what these journeys are about, darn it. I wanted to say I'm tired of repeating myself on that, but I'm not. I really like saying that. So with that in mind, like with the moon being your only sort of ally, because the moon is always your ally no matter what sign it's in. You can actually look up what sign the moon will be in and tune yourself towards those energies. So like if the moon is going to be in Sagittarius, you could like dial into King or Queen of Wands energy sort of thing. You could dial into your more passionate nature on a more mature aspect. Or if you want to take a leap of faith, like when the moon is in Aries, that's a perfect place to do that, especially if you don't care about thinking things through at the moment. But so the moon is your only ally for the most part going through. It doesn't mean none of the other planets and asteroids in their placements aren't going to benefit you in other ways. It's just the moon is definitely your only for sure friend energetically going through. And it's the only one that should be going through your sign. Now, the message that I got it like through that is like you have one crazy deity friend right now. Like that's what you got. And I don't know, I'd be curious to hear in the comments how many of you may be able to resonate with this or not. Like you may have what you'd qualify as a number of friends. So if you really step back and examine it, like how many of them are true friends? How many of them would, be willing to defend you even if they were the only ones doing it? How many of them would tell you the truth even if it made them look bad? How many of them would, I kind of say that whole ride or die sort of feel, like how many of them are really genuinely that way, and how many of them are the type that if you were like, does these pants make my ass look big, that they would be like, oh no, you're great, and they're absolutely lying. Like you could put on the ugliest freaking pants you ever, like, you could go around them and like rub horse shit all over yourself and be like, do I smell bad? And they'd be like, no, you smell wonderful. Like how many people around you do you know that are like that, compared to, do you have at least a friend or two that would be like, dude, yeah, you kind of stink, you want some help, you want to take a shower at my place, or they, even if you didn't ask them, they might come out and be like, dude, I just wanted to let you know, like, those pants are not great on you. I'm, like, if you want to rock them, that's totally awesome. I will totally love you for it anyways. I'm just saying, like, they make your parts look weird, like that friend, like, and they're probably somebody that doesn't fit the mold of what you're used to from anyone else. Like they're like, if you're used to people that are honest with you, but they're kind of in that, well, I'm blunt, so they say really shitty, fucked up things to you and have like no empathy in there at all. No, I'm talking about like that one weird friend that you have that is like oddly always there for you and often even knows when you need them to be there for you before you might be aware that they need you to be, that you needed them, or maybe somebody that you feel like would be that you've not really allowed into your life because that sort of thing scares you. It makes you feel real feels and stuff like that. But then there was more syncs, like Toy Story syncs. There's a lot of Toy Story syncs, especially when I've been thinking about doing this reading today. And the main one leads to the song "You've Got a Friend in Me," and then that one for me always leads back to "Have a Little Faith in Me." So there's somewhere for you, Cancer, that there is one friend. I want to say it's specific too. It's not, I mean, it might also be a family. Like, they might be a family member who has been a true friend to you. But I'm going to say it's not a family member. It's not at least a current lover. It's not likely to be like an ex, but maybe. And it's not likely to be like a current partner or anything, or somebody that you work with necessarily. But look around, use your intuition. And the other things that I've been getting, which is really funny to me because I know many cancers, and this is like very fitting for the kinds of things that they can get themselves into. So I love you all. It's Medusa sinks. And what's funny is like Spirit brought me some extra information about the story of Medusa, and I love it. It's very Jungian. And what it is that when we look at the story of Medusa, and especially with Perseus, like Medusa was created through an act of violence by Poseidon and turned her into, sneaky woman who, when she looks at you, she turns you to stone. And it's actually a representation of how society often looks at women who are emotional as hysterical, or like if they turn their gaze on you and tell you the truth, that they will turn you to stone, sort of thing. And then it also represents kind of it represents our shadows, the spitefulness, the bitterness, things like that. You could kind of fit it in like crazy X sort of stuff, but you can also fit it into toxic femininity. And when you get into the story, like Perseus is the one who needs to go and defeat her, and the only way that he's able to do that is by holding up a mirror to her face. So she basically turned herself to stone, and then he cut off her head, put it in a magical bag, and through that, Pegasus was born. And part of the Jungian look at it, sort of, is that what happened was Perseus had to go and face himself. Perseus had to go and face his worst fears, and a lot of them were mother related, right? And we can see in some of this too. I mean, it like Venn diagrams with the like Oedipus complex sort of stuff, and even like Peter Pan syndrome, stuff like that, like mommy, father, and mommy and daddy wounds. Everybody's got them, though. Cancers, especially cancer sons, tend to have this a little more thoroughly on their life paths. It's got good and bad things about it. Like, it's okay to feel the feely feels about how your life has been, and also acknowledge that it's not going to hold you back forever, and that it made you the wonderful person that you are, and the even more wonderful person that you're becoming. So But what it looks at is like Perseus effectively had to face his own shadows, which leads us back to the energy I've been talking about for a while, the Lady of the Lake test, the nothing in the never ending story and things like that. And that leads me into too, like when we talk about the end of never ending story, like facing the nothing was not actually the full challenge if you think about it. Like it was. And you had to get past the gates, you had to have pure heart or at least be able to run really good. And then face yourself and fight yourself, which is the typical Lady of the Lake test. But it was really the boy, Sebastian, who was reading the book. And he needed to give a name to the childlike empress. But the first thing he had to do before he could do that was to actually believe that not only was the book magical enough to have been including him in the story, that he was magical enough and important enough as even just as the reader of the story, as a boy with a heart who felt for this like seemingly fictional world, to be able to trust himself enough to even just try shouting out a name, even if it was completely absurd. And that Sebastian in the first one definitely reminded me very much of Cancerian Energy. It's one of my favorite childhood movies. But if you look at that, right, in order to be able to restore peace and balance and love and to have everything that you've always deserved, Cancer, and that you've always really wanted, you first have to learn to trust yourself and to believe that you matter. That even if nobody else knows it, you matter. And the Medusa thing too, it feels like there's an emphasis with all the Scorpio energy and all the different things going on of definitely toxic femininity. And you might be going through what I have been recently calling a shadow storm, where there's a lot of feminine energy coming up. And it's feminine energy of all kinds. Though depending on on what kinds of thoughts you've been thinking consistently, especially about the women around you, whether you are feminine or masculine yourself, that's likely manifesting right now. Like, even people who you wouldn't normally characterize as people that would like join in on dramas or circusry or piratery or things like that might be joining the fray largely because you spent a lot of time fearing that they would or you had a lot of people in your ear suggesting that they would, and so it was there. Likewise, if you've been in a place of fearing losing money or losing your job or losing your place or losing family emotional support, you're likely going to experience most of those things for a little while. And largely it's because your spirit guides want you to finally accept and own that you are that powerful and that you have the ability to manifest anything that you would like. And if you're going to continue to spend more years manifesting what you don't want and your fears, I mean, they don't have a problem with that, but they're just going to sit there and eat popcorn like that Michael Jackson gif that people use when other people are getting into weird moments of emotional outbursts. In any case, the there's two really like main messages that stuck out at the end of this information, and it's that you must say the things and you must feel the feels. So, my dear Cancer friends, it is time. It is time. You can choose door number one, two, or three. No matter which door you choose, it is time to say the things and feel the feels. You can fight it if you want to, though you are a Cancer, and considering all the astrological placements that are not exactly in favor of you being able to stay in your shell and not say the things or feel the feels, I would suggest you go into it consciously so that at very least, when the shadow storms are done, you can say that you said everything intentionally, that you hid nothing, that you were fully authentic with everyone, and that you fully accept any consequences and anything that come along with what you say or do, so that you can embrace all of you and love all of you and stand in your radiant light, like one of the weird crystally beings at the end of the dark crystal. And then the great thing is you get to decide. You don't have to stay one of those crystally beings. You don't have to like toss out your ego and stuff. Like you could totally decide to go have some more carrot cake Oreos and play with stuffies and drive ORVs and do weird things and I don't know, like whatever things that you want to do, adult things, inner child things, whatever stuff that you want to do, Cancer. That's the great thing is like once the story ends, the story is not over. You get to start a new story. And you get to decide once once you decide to be conscious about facing your shadow storms and stuff, which are just, to be quite honest, Cancers, I love you. You're just going to keep creating them until you decide that you want to intentionally create something different. And you will get there. You are getting there. If you're listening to this, you're already most of the way there. Be willing to chuckle at yourself here and there. It will make life much more pleasant for you and everyone who loves you. And trust me, there are a lot of people that love y'all. You kidding, Cancers? Between the people that taught that like speak the highest of all of y'all and the people who have nothing but shit to say because they fell in love with y'all and then got hurt because they weren't good enough to stay, or you were not in a place to be able to be good enough to stay with them and it hurt them either way. Like, I don't know, like y'all are lovable. Y'all are so fucking lovable, and your shadows are, quite frankly, to me as a Capricorn, some of the most adorable ones. So focus on that. Focus on being grateful, focus on saying, you know what, that's right, I'm not perfect, I'm imperfectly perfect, and I like that about me. They like, you know what, that's right, damn Skippy, I'm a brat. Or that's right, I like to have lots of people who love on me. Darn it, that's right, I like to focus on some materialism to make sure I feel secure so I can have my clean spaces and my garages and my she sheds and stuff and feel really amazing about what I do in them, of course. And also, you know what? While I'm out here supporting everybody and being everybody's hero, I expect to be respected. And I expect to be given time and space and place to be myself, to cry if I want to, because it is my party and I can cry if I want to. All right, Cancerians, I love you so much. I hope that you enjoyed these messages for you. And I will see you in the next video.